Hi, and welcome to the BecomingGreat.com podcast. This is a podcast for people who want to make the world or their own lives better through entrepreneurship and personal development. And if you are new here, this is an update episode, meaning that in these episodes we are focusing on our journey building the company Great.com. A company that will give away 100% of its profits to charity. And today, and as always, I'm here with the founder of Great, Erik Bergman. Erik, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. I got caught up in your rephrasing about what this podcast is about when you said, want to make the world a better place or your own life better through entrepreneurship. I like that. I think that's something we're going back to.
I liked it too. My intention with the introduction was to stick to the script, and I did the opposite. I'm not good at sticking to things, which is kind of the theme of this episode as well, I guess. And
so you need to stick to me introducing you first.
Oh, right. Okay. I'll hold it. But we're getting there.
We're practicing. Okay, and I'm here with Emil Ekvardt, my brilliant friend who was the first one joining me into this endeavor of Great.com and who's the host of this podcast. How are you doing today, Emil?
I'm enjoying and I'm being entertained by not doing the same introduction as always. Fun. I like this little bit of chit-chat. And it's good that I do, because the topic of today is how do you deal with boring things? Either if you have to do boring things working in a company or with a company, or if you are owning a company and you want to encourage, let's say, your employees to do boring things.
Yeah, because a lot of things is boring right now.
Well, to do fun
tell
things.
Me, how did we end up with this topic for this episode, Evan?
So we are starting a new project with Great. That is another podcast, actually, that is going to interview a lot of different kind of charity organizations around the world.
Yeah, and I'm actually very excited about this project, because I think that this is what we will be doing is that we will interview a lot of charity organizations, and we will teach about what they're doing and how people can help them. And at the same time, we will hopefully get the name of Great.com out there and become an authority in the charity sphere, as well as helping building our rankings in Google in various ways. And I'm just really excited about those parts. And I'm really excited about you being in charge of a project, because that's something new. I'm always the one in charge of everything in Great, and I'm just excited of not being in charge. How does it feel to be in charge of something?
Well, I don't feel like I'm in charge. We are 3 people running the project, and
who's in charge?
Who's
in charge?
I would say Beatrice or Spirit.
So you're the least in charge.
I would say I'm probably the least in charge in this little trio.
Okay.
Anywho, what I am excited about the project is I really feel when I speak to these different charity organizations that first, I think there are listeners for the podcast. It's a 20-minute podcast that is an introduction to the organization, the cost they're dealing with, the challenges they're facing. So I really like the 20-minute format. And I also like that we can show things that are not seen on an organization's website. So when I visit a website, we see what they do and information, but we don't see the people behind it. We don't see the passion that is being put into creating these organizations.
I like that. We don't see the passion. So we actually get to know a person behind it in a way that would be really hard otherwise. These people you interview, are they in a lot of other podcasts? So is this something that's new to them?
I don't think so. I think some of them are. And I think for some of them, it's kind of their first or one of their first experiences to get the limelight in this way. So some of them really prepare deeply. They're like, I watched all of your podcast. I prepared, like, what questions are you going to ask? And some of them seem a bit more comfortable. But what they have in common, I think, is that they truly believe in the cause that they are trying to change. And they really want to put something positive into this world. And it's super inspiring to speak with them.
I really like what you said there, that this is a way to get to feel their passion, because it's really hard to communicate passion with a website. It's always just text, and we're also so I think that we're pretty numb to text due to all the advertising out there, due to how many exclamation points people use on Instagram and whatnot, or headlines. That it doesn't really matter how exciting a text article sounds, it's hard to take it seriously. But I think that if you're talking to someone, it's so much easier to feel their passion and their enthusiasm for something, that they genuinely care about this. You hear their voice, you hear what their choice of words, and there are things that in text is pretty easy to fake. So we're used to that it's being faked in headlines and whatnot. But it's not in the kind of podcast context. Does that make sense?
I feel exactly the same. I feel like I really get to know what is behind the website and the text. And also it gives an opportunity for some undistracted time. At least me, like I can read in a book, but if I'm reading in a browser, I'm really struggling because there are so many distractions coming in from WhatsApp or whatever that is taking me out of that experience. Yeah. And also I think, and rightly so, what many of these organizations are going for is to appear trustworthy.
Yeah, which comes better after.
Yeah, so they have to make a trade-off between showing passion and enthusiasm sometimes and trustworthiness.
That's a good point as well. You can't really use headline language on a website without losing credibility. Even if you're feeling headline excited, you can't really use it.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice. Okay, so the topic of the podcast of today is still boredom. What is it about this project that you don't enjoy then?
Well, that was the fun part. Creating the interview in itself. I love meeting new people. Like, the most fun I know is to go to a party where I don't know anyone and just start talking, get to know people, be like ridiculously curious and start to understand things about someone that maybe they haven't shared to anyone before. There's nothing I like more. Well, at least that's my extroverted side. And I'm I would say quite creative as a person, which means that my bias is towards finding things I haven't thought of before. Now, what I found myself in with this podcast is that for about every 30 minutes of talking with someone, that is what I enjoy, there is about 3 hours of admin minimum. I would say it might be even more, because after this, we're going to publish it on all platforms. We're going to create an article out of it. We got to find these people. We got to plan the podcast. We got to set it up. We're going to teach them about the tech and how to do. And afterwards, we're going to talk with them about how we're going to publish this. And it's just a storm of admin that it's not creative. It's very repetitive, since we want to do one podcast per day. And I have not yet found a way to enjoy this.
So what feelings do you get in your body thinking about all the admin?
I feel bored. I feel overwhelmed because I feel like it's taken up all of my time with Great. And I also feel, so I'm working 50% with Great.com right now. And I feel like there's people mailing me and reaching out to me all days per week. So it feels like there's constantly something that I should be doing. And I'm feeling overwhelmed because of it. And this is a new project, of course. So I yet haven't found such good structures to deal with this.
Overwhelmed. For me, overwhelmed is that word, whenever someone uses this, is this big red flag to me, because I think that overwhelmed it's the killer of joy in a sense, and it's what takes us to being burned out one way or another. And it's to me, it's just a very negative word. And I think it comes from my past when I've been feeling overwhelmed myself. And it's very paralyzing to feel overwhelmed. Is that your relationship to overwhelmness as well?
For sure. And also, it puts me into a state of mind where I'm doing the tasks where the only thing I want is to have them completed. I don't take myself any time to enjoy that process. For example, if I'm writing an article about an interview that I did, I could take the time to say, okay, how can I put joy in this? How can I put creativity in this? How can I learn to maybe be a better writer from creating this article? That could be a mindset. But now I feel like I don't have time for that. I just want to get this over and done with. So I'm putting the minimum amount of effort to get an outcome. And I feel like I have that mindset throughout all of these admin tasks.
It takes me into a thing. I listened to an old speech the other day on some MP3 that a friend sent to me. And he spoke about involvement. And what he meant by that was that the more involved we are with the task, the more we enjoy the task. And with involved, he meant the less we're thinking about other things, the more we are in the moment. And he took the example of dancing, that if you are dancing, but you're constantly thinking about other things, you're worrying what people think about you, you're worrying about all kinds of stuff. Does this look good? Does this not look good? You're going to have a very hard time enjoying the dance. But if you're completely caught up in it and you're just in there in the moment, you're not thinking about anything else, you're gonna love what you're doing. And that's like how you measure involvement, that if you're thinking about things, other things, and you have a hard time engaging yourself in something, it's also really hard to enjoy it. And he said that you could apply this to pretty much anything in life, that the more you are involved with something, the more you'll enjoy something. And it sounds to me like you're struggling to feel involved with these tasks, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way of thinking about involvement. He spoke about how involved you are in something and how invested you are in something. And invested was the kind of the opposite, that it means how much, it's the same kind of graph, that you tie your feelings to the outcome. So let's say you can be very involved in a dance and have a lot of fun with it. But if you're very invested in the dance, it means that it needs to look very good. The outcome needs to be very good. What other people think about it needs to be very good. So if you're high on investment, it means that you're investing a lot of your emotions in the outcome, not necessarily the experience. So if you're low invested in the outcome, you have a lot easier to enjoy it as well. And I can imagine here doing a new project, you want this to come out as really good. You don't want to publish something that you're not proud of. It means that you're likely to be quite high in investment in this task because of that as well.
Yes, I would say that is correct.
Yeah, I think I like the way of thinking of involvement and investment. Because then the higher your investment is in something, the harder it is to enjoy it. And the higher your involvement is in something, the easier it is to enjoy it. And you can look at these. He takes the example of people who complains a lot. And he says that if you have very low involvement in something, but very high investment in something, that's basically a sports supporter. Someone looking at sports, screaming at the TV. They're not running at the ball themselves. They're not doing anything. They're just complaining when their team loses. They're not involved at all, but they're very invested because they're not going to be happy unless their team wins or they score or whatever. And yeah, I think to me, I heard this just a couple of weeks ago, so I haven't in any way really integrated in my mindset, but I think it helps to think about when is something boring and what could I do then to increase my involvement or decrease my investment.
So if you take the situation that I'm in then as an example, how could you use this key concept to help me move forward in a productive way here?
That's a good question. I wish I would have thought this through a lot more before I started talking about involvement and investment. No, but I think just thinking about it as involvement, that if you get into the mindset that the more I engage with this, the more I will enjoy it, that the purpose of engaging is to enjoy it, I think that is something that I've changed my own mindset in a way that I can sometimes identify with this is so boring, and I kind of keep telling myself that this is boring, so I engage less with it because it's boring. But just thinking about, if I engage myself more, I will enjoy it more. So I'm not necessarily engaging myself more for a certain outcome or for the sake of someone else or whatever. It's more that if I try to be more engaged, I will have more fun. Does that make sense?
Yes. So what would your approach be to be more engaged in a task like this? Or in a situation like this?
Yeah, just thinking about that mindset. Like, okay, I want to be enjoying this. And see if that's possible. If you were asking yourself, if you wanted to enjoy this task, what could you think about?
So I would start looking at I don't enjoy this task in particular, but for me to find joy and involvement in this, I can look at it, what skill set can performing this task teach me that I can then use for something that I do enjoy.
Let me see if I understand that. Okay, so what can I learn from this that I could use somewhere else? So the learning would make it feel more meaningful, and that would cause more involvement.
Exactly. So let's say that something that I feel joy in right now that I want to do more of is I want to be more active on social media. That is, be more active on Instagram and on YouTube. So here, writing the articles for the podcast, that could teach me writing skills that I can then apply to creating posts on Instagram, for example.
Yeah, and when we're saying writing articles, we mean that with every podcast episode we release, we do a blog post article about it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if I could have a mindset, okay, I'm writing this article with the intention of becoming a better writer, then I think that would add to my involvement in performing the task, and I would go in there with more of a mastery mindset. And if I had the space to go in with an attitude that I want to learn here, I really do think that I would enjoy the task of writing the article. And my struggle now has been that I'm going in to writing the article with saying, I hope I can do this quickly because I really need to move on.
I like that.
I'm getting swamped in admin right now. I just want to get this off my desk.
This reminds me of something you said in a meeting we had earlier this week. Emil just started doing acro yoga with his girlfriend, and he was so passionate about talking about acro yoga, which is basically two people doing yoga together, one person lying on the ground and the other person spinning around on their legs in the air. And just because of this interest, he said, "Oh, it's so fun to go to the gym right now because it feels like I'm working out with a purpose."
Exactly.
That suddenly going to the gym became more fun because you could learn acro yoga from it. And that's basically what you're saying now, that writing the article would be more fun because you could apply that writing skill somewhere else.
Exactly. And I think this is a very important productivity hack, at least that I have found useful. And I would like to clarify it, that I think we as humans are more motivated by things that will serve ourselves than things that will serve others. And this might make us sound unsolidaric, if that's a word. It might make us sound egoistic. I would go with
selfish. It's an easy word.
Yeah, it might make us sound selfish. So I think that's something that is generally being shunned at, something that generally might be looked at as a defect in our character. We should be doing things for other people.
Yeah.
But my approach is that knowing that we as humans have this bias to wanting to serve ourselves, how can I use that to my advantage? So that means that in all tasks that I do, especially the ones that is boring, even tasks where I'm doing things for other people, how can I find some kind of motive for how will this serve me?
I like that. So how can I look at this admin task that I don't enjoy in a way that I'm selfish, so I'm gonna get the most out of this for myself, and that way making it more fun, increasing the involvement then, and actually doing the tasks better at the end of the day because you had more fun doing it.
Exactly. So I think in the end of the day, that is actually probably the most effective way to help other people, to find what is your selfish motivation in this and use this human bias to your advantage.
Okay. Let's get that into some kind of a trick that, for you listening, if you have boring tasks to do in your work, someone is telling you to do this, you don't want to enjoy this. What kind of advice would you give to that person in this scenario? If they should ask themselves one question, for example.
So if you have to do boring things at work, I would say, is there some kind of passion project? Do I see something lying up ahead in my life that I really, really want to do? And is any skill set that I can learn here while being bored going to be useful in the future? Will this teach me to be more structured? Will this teach me to increase my willpower to finish tasks? Will this teach me to be better at communicating with other people via email? And see how will this benefit something that I do enjoy?
I like that. So how will this benefit something that I will enjoy in the future? What can I think about here that I will be better at that will take me closer to my personal goals?
Exactly. And I have been doing this every time I sit down to do these tasks because I honestly feel like I'm really struggling. Like I'm procrastinating a lot. Sitting down and writing this article, it takes me half an hour of just walking around the apartment to get started because I don't like it. So during that time, I remind me, but if I do, I will learn these things for the future. And I'm teaching going against resistance and procrastination right now. That's what I'm learning. That would be useful in the future to kind of, okay, I'm actually doing this with my free will.
Yeah, I like that way of thinking. Okay, so you've been feeling a lot of resistance and feeling that this is really boring in many ways. How has it felt talking about this with Beatrice and Spirit and that runs the project together with you? Are they feeling the same way?
Yes, they are. But I was the one saying it out loud.
Okay.
Yeah. So I brought this up in a meeting with both of them, and I felt like a bad team player doing it. I felt unsolidaric, again, if that's a word. I felt that I was childish, that I wasn't willing to perform my tasks when I said, okay, I think this is overwhelming. I think we're moving so quick that I haven't, there's no time for me to build structures or finding joy in my work. I feel like I'm creating a very negative association with great right now. And I think over time that is very unhealthy if I want to stay in this project for a long time. And yeah, to raise these things makes me feel like a super bad team player. Like I'm complaining.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So how did you feel lifting that? What feelings did you have in your body?
Well, I was frustrated about the situation in itself. And and so I went into the conversation feeling very frustrated and wanting things to change. And I went out of it feeling childish and like I was complaining and not doing my part.
Did you feel shame?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like this is an unacceptable thing to do, that if we're a team, I should just shut up, accept that it's boring and do my task, because they're doing boring tasks too. And I didn't hear them complain.
I can see that. So are you happy with the way you lifted it, or would you like to have done it somewhere else? Some other way?
The way I performed the lifting was okay. Like there's always room for improvements. But I am happy that I lifted it. Because we have a policy with Great that if something is creating a negative, one of our values is that we should do our work in a passionate way. And a part of that value is that if we don't find joy in something we do, we should lift it so we can get assistance and find ways to either find joy in it by thinking of it differently, change our perspective, or finding other tasks to do. So that is something we have as a value. And still, I haven't seen it being used that much. And I think it's because it takes time to set a culture like that. To me, there has to be safety at the staff for someone to have the courage to say that I don't like this. I haven't found a way to find joy in this. I'm bored. Things like that, because it could bring the other team members down.
Yeah, definitely. So the first thing that comes to mind to me is that in a regular organization where this wouldn't be encouraged to be lifted, it would still come out, but then it would be as pure complaining or negative energy. It's like mid-conversation.
Behind someone's back.
Exactly. Or even thinking about, I want to quit and start doing something else, because you're not allowed to raise your concerns.
Yes, someone can go and be frustrated at their work tasks for like 2 years, and as soon as they get another job offer, they're out, and the company didn't even know.
Yeah.
And now they lost an employee.
I'm feeling into how I'm feeling in this situation, since I'm the one paying your salary, and I'm hearing you being bored and frustrated. And I think a couple of years ago, I would just have said, shut up, do your thing, work, and get this done. I'm paying you to do it. And now I feel genuinely concerned. And like, okay, we need to figure out a way to make this fun for everyone's sake.
And I think this is a crucial part of this whole episode, what we're discussing right now. Because you want us to raise these things. And someone that is running their own company or thinking about running one might think, why would I want the employees to raise this? Why? It must be better for me as the owner of this company that I just find a way to make people do the boring tasks. That's what I'm paying them to do. They should be quiet and not complaining. Why would you want this to be raised? Why would you even want to do something about it? These tasks needs to be done, right?
Yeah. So the way I see business, two things come to mind. The first one is that someone who enjoys their tasks are gonna do that with a lot more energy, a lot more inspiration, and probably gonna do a lot better at it. So even if that means they're doing the tasks slower, they might do it more efficiently, or they might talk more positively about it outside of the business, or they might just have actually spend more hours doing it because they enjoy it. So they might start thinking about it outside of work or whatever it is. That if there is a way to find a joyful way to enjoy boring tasks, that might make it slower in the beginning. But I think if we can find a joyful way to do it, it will make it faster once we get there. So I believe that a team player, an employee, call it whatever you want, who enjoy the tasks they're doing will stay longer with the team, which means that we'll not have to recruit someone else who would do the same kind of headache business because we managed to find a way to enjoy it. Or a person who's just not enjoying. If you would think this is really boring, a year from now, it's very likely you would leave. I would have no idea why. I would put someone else in the same spot doing the same kind of tasks. They would probably leave a year later. And if we can find a way where you enjoy this, you will hopefully do them for 25 years. I don't know. We will not have to recruit 24 times. We can have a real and honest conversation about what's going on. You can feel that I'm caring about you having fun with this, which probably in itself makes it more joyful. That you will have less negative associations to it because you have a way to ventilate them. And you don't have to, I think most of the time in an organization when you're having boring tasks, you ventilate them to someone else who have a boring tasks, and you get to hear about their boring tasks, and you just get infested with boredom. instead
don't let the manager hear it.
Don't let the manager hear it, exactly. Instead of trying to lift it up and both get empathy for it, because I feel you, I hate boring tasks. And then getting to feel, okay, we want to do something about it. I appreciate you lifting it. And I think that long term, this is creating a work environment where no one will leave without me actually knowing on it beforehand or understanding why. People might still leave. I mean, people get tired. People want to try new things. Employees do that. I think in most organizations where I've been involved, when the good people leave, we had no idea about that. It just happened. They might be angry or frustrated at things about stuff for a very long time. They just haven't felt safe enough to lift it because they haven't felt that we would do something about it.
And that's the key, right? Making someone feel safe enough to say, I'm sharing that I'm struggling here, because that's really what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm struggling to find joy in this. I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. I'm just saying I'm struggling to find a way to put my passion in here and to create an environment where there is enough safety to bring that up, so we don't have to go for a long time building resentment. And that is tricky. Like, I don't feel like I have that feeling completely there yet, because I haven't had enough cases of me doing this and I have been met with understanding and care. Like, it happened now, but it would have to happen a couple of times before I really build up that safe sense of safety.
Yeah, I completely see that. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And there isn't an easy way to do this. We're experimenting with this right now. I don't know how we're gonna end up if we have tasks that no one wants to do, that just gets boring. And what's the way forward is that if it can't be automated, whatever it is, I don't know how to deal with that. But I have a strong feeling that the solution is to really look for people to enjoy specific things. I mean, one extreme case that comes to mind for me is a friend of mine. He's got a company who fixes iPhones. So broken iPhones, both like the screens, but also all kinds of small things in them. And it's really mundane and boring task. They do the same thing over and over and over again. And he has specialized in getting people with Asperger's to do this, that are really, really good at it, that really enjoy doing it, and that doesn't want to engage a lot in different tasks. They want mundane tasks. That's where they see their brilliance. So even in the extreme, you can find someone who is suitable for it. And that, I mean, I don't think there is such a thing as a boring task that no one would enjoy. It's just tricky to find the person who would enjoy it. And then you would need to have enough of that boring task to make it a full-time job. But that's like the long-term dream, I would say.
Totally. And also find what the people that you already have, what could they find fun about this task, and really make them see that that is actually happening. So for me, in this case, for example, I really love building systems.
Yeah.
And building a system for how to deal with the boring tasks in an as effective way as possible. That I actually find a lot of joy in. So that put a huge smile on my face. I just didn't see that. Okay, but you actually get to practice system building here. Oh, that's right. I didn't think of that. So just to see what you're already doing that you do enjoy in something that is overall right now boring to you can also be very helpful.
I like that. And this brings once again value to talking about it, because it helps you to direct focus to how to enjoy it, how to look for the things you enjoy in it, and might help me to come with, but Emil, you love system building. How could you apply this here?
Yeah.
And it becomes a real thing about it.
And that is exactly what happened when I brought this up to the team. And I want to share that just to reinforce what you said about finding the things you love, and that someone that feels seen, safe, and heard will actually put more effort in. So last Wednesday, I brought this up to the team. We have a meeting between 6 and 8 in the evening. I brought this up. I felt a lot of shame. I felt frustration. Afterwards, I felt like a bad team player, but I also felt very seen and heard. And the guys met me with support. They understood that it's important and great that we can ventilate these things. It's important that we don't build negative associations. And they made me see, so what do you like about it? I'm like, I do like system building. And afterwards I went away seeing more clearly what I liked, and I got to release all of this frustration. I got I got to say it out loud. And just saying it out loud and connecting with, oh, the other guys feel this frustration too. Now we are 3 people together facing the challenge of frustration. It's not me on my own being the only one that is frustrated, and these guys are better team players than me. So I felt much more connected to my team. When I got home from floorball at like 10, 11 in the evening, where I would normally be super tired, I had like this wave of energy and creativity for how to build a system for how to fix this. So I set up from, I think, 11 in the evening to 1. I was in complete flow state, meaning I was super involved in creating the system for these tasks. And I probably did 10 hours of work in 2 hours because I was hyper-focused and I had this passion from within to create a system that worked for me and use what I'm naturally good at to the benefit of this project.
I love that. I think that summarizes so well what I'm hoping to accomplish with the feeling of safety and team that we're building here. That's exactly what I'm hoping that we will achieve. That kind of safety, and what you say, we're in this together. I think that makes such a big difference when we're feeling connected to each other in a challenging situation than when we feel alone in a challenging situation.
Yeah, and to connect, I must be able to share that I'm feeling this way. And and it's a vulnerable thing for me to do. I felt that. I felt I can be punished by saying this because I'm saying it to you, I'm saying it to my team. This could really be used against me. So I'm super vulnerable when I'm saying it.
Okay, so one last thing I'm curious about, and I don't know if we have a good answer to this, is what can someone do then if they're in a team where they don't feel safe to lift something like this up? How would you go about this? Let's say you were feeling the same way, but the culture wouldn't encourage you to talk about it, because that's probably the way it is for most people having boring tasks in an average company. What would you do then?
I don't have a super good answer for that. My first approach would be to find that intrinsic motivation, the motivation that comes from how can this serve me?
Yeah.
To make it more bearable. Well, at least I get to do these boring things around people that I like, and I get to practice social skills. Well, I get to practice being structured. I get to practice boredom. That can be useful for something that I do enjoy in the future. Do you have another answer that we haven't already talked about?
One thing that I've never done, so I don't know if this would work, but I can imagine it working, would be to sit down and just write out my frustration. Basically, like I were to send a letter to my manager about how freaking boring these things are, but never sending it. But just being able to channel that frustration out a bit, kind of like you got to do with your team, but you wouldn't really share it with anyone. And I believe that once I've done that, it would be easier for me to then look, what do I enjoy about this? That if I'm starting from a frustration place, like this is really freaking boring, I can't believe I have to do this, I think I would have a hard time seeing the good pieces, the system building or the things that I would learn. And if I could just get that frustration out of me, even if it's just in writing a letter, because I do that every now and then. I just write things that pisses me off. I don't send it to anyone. I just have it in a Word file. And I feel that the combination of those two then could be a beneficial approach to boring tasks in a team environment that doesn't feel safe enough to talk about it.
I agree. And also I would add in that the importance of putting effort into finding a way to enjoy things more. Maybe you can't completely enjoy it, but I think it's our responsibility to find how can I enjoy this as much as possible and look for those solutions. Not only look for completing the task, but look for how can I increase my joy in this.
Yeah, for our own selfish reasons as well.
Yeah, just to enjoy our life more. Like, don't be okay with don't liking things.
Yeah. One more thing that came from this investment thing was this guy who did the speak, I don't remember his name. He's the author of some book. I don't remember the book. So we'll put the link in the description. He said that there was this factory that were closing down in 2 years' time. So we're going to close down this department, and people were informed that, yeah, you're not going to have a job in 2 years' time. And what happened then was that the productivity went down so much for all the workers that they didn't care anymore. Why should they work for this company that wasn't caring about them anymore? And this author, he was called in to see if he could fix it. And he started talking with people, and they say that, yeah, but the company doesn't care about us, so we don't care about them. And then he asked, okay, are you having more or less fun doing the tasks now than you did before? And like, yeah, I hate doing the tasks now. I'm not engaged at all. It's like, okay, so if you were just engaged in it, would you think that you would have more fun? Like, yeah, probably. Okay, so even if the company doesn't care about you, maybe for your own sake, for your own selfish reasons, try to be engaged in it and try to have fun with it. And you will probably enjoy it more. And the workers really agreed with this. Like, yeah, I'm not doing this for the company. I don't even care about the company. I'm doing this for me because I'm truly passionate about me and I want to enjoy things. And what happened later, at least according to the author, was that people got so engaged in the things they were doing that they increased their productivity so much that when they actually decided to close down this part of the plant, more or less all of the people who have been working in that part got jobs elsewhere in the same factory, because they had been able to keep up their productivity so high, even in these hard times. And what I learned from that is, I believe that a lot of the time we feel frustrated towards an employer. We feel frustrated that someone makes us do this, and we're filled with that resentment, as you mentioned. And then we don't want to do a good job because we don't want to do a good job for them. And just changing that mindset to, I want to do a good job for me. I want to enjoy this for me, and getting that selfish energy, in a sense, into it can make it more fun, and everybody wins.
And it makes you a better team player too.
Yeah,
I think that
wins.
stories summarize what we've been talking about today beautifully. And I feel done for today. Do you have something you want to add?
I want to say, please, you listening to this wonderful podcast, if you enjoy this, please go to iTunes, Spotify, or whatever podcast place you're listening, and click the subscribe button. Because if you're subscribing to this podcast, you increase our chances of getting into top lists everywhere. Because the top lists aren't based on who listens the most, because we're a really small podcast. We would be screwed if that was the thing. But it's based on who have the highest percentage subscribers to a podcast. So the more subscribers we have percentage-wise, the bigger chances we have of getting up in the top list and ranking. And you have already started doing this, you listening. We are so grateful for this, because we have started getting into some top lists every here and there. And it feels amazing! So thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting us. And thank you, Emil, for being here with me today.
Thank you, Erik. And I'll see you next week.
Cheerio!